Number 7. Cyanide poisoning. A University of Pittsburgh researcher was accused of poisoning his wife's energy drink with cyanide back in April 2013. It was discovered that 66-year-old Robert Ferrante had purchased the chemical with his university-issued card just 2 days before his wife, 41-year-old Dr. Autumn Klein, suddenly became sick and passed away. Even though evidence was stacked against him, Ferrante denied having anything to do with the death of his wife. He claimed that he bought the cyanide for stem cell experiments he had been conducting for Lou Gehrig's disease. Ferrante said the toxin could be used to kill neurological cells that would simulate the disease during his research, but prosecutors pegged Ferrante as, quote, a master manipulator who concocted the plan to murder his wife after she pressured him to have another child. They also believed he could have been worried Klein was cheating on him or wanted a divorce. Even though Ferrante denied poisoning his wife, a lethal amount of cyanide was found in Klein's blood after a lab test. Her blood was drawn during the 3-day stint in the hospital when doctors desperately tried to save her life. Sadly, the results were not known for the test until after she died. Ferrante allegedly told a colleague, as well as the police, that he had been in the kitchen with his wife and gave her a creatine drink before her collapse. But on the witness stand, the man changed his story and said he had been upstairs when Klein came home and wasn't sure. He also stated that she fell to the ground after giving him a kiss on the cheek, intentionally leaving out details regarding the energy drink he was suspected to have poisoned. Ferrante thought he could outsmart the jury, but it was also revealed that he made several online searches about cyanide poisoning, including how it could be reversed using medical treatments or how it could get detected by a coroner. After a 15-hour deliberation over 2 days, Ferrante was found guilty of first-degree murder and was given life in prison for killing his wife. Number 6. Serpent DNA. In 2021, the owner of a surfing school from California was charged with killing his 2 children in Mexico. He claimed he did it because they, quote, were going to grow into monsters. The man was 40-year-old Matthew Taylor Coleman, and according to police reports, Coleman confessed and even told the FBI that he stabbed them to death using a spearfishing gun. He explained that he committed the crime because he truly believed that they were going to turn into monsters, and that wild conspiracy theories made him think his wife gave serpent DNA to the children. Barber police were contacted by the man's wife after Coleman disappeared with the kids and didn't tell her where they were going. She said he wasn't answering calls or messages. A missing persons report was filed and police asked her to locate the man using Apple's Find My iPhone program. Surprisingly, this worked, and they were able to find Coleman's last known location, Rosarito, Mexico. The FBI was alerted about the investigation and, instead of a missing persons case, it turned into a parental kidnapping case. Coleman was quickly found in Mexico after border agents inspected his van. His children were not in the vehicle, but they did find blood, making things much worse. Mexican authorities found 2 bodies, and Coleman identified them as his kids. The man apparently knew what he did was wrong, but thought it was, quote, the only course of action that would save the world. Coleman was a firm believer in the, quote, lizard people conspiracy, and somehow believed his children held reptilian DNA. Regardless of what he believed, his actions were horrible and ended the lives of 2 innocent kids. Coleman was ordered to be held in jail without bond. His hearing was originally set for August 31st, but it was pushed back. He was still being held in July 2022, and as of today, Coleman's sentencing remains unclear. Number 5. Evil house cleaner. An evil house cleaner kidnapped and killed a wealthy scientist in Hebron, Kentucky in March 2009. 73-year-old Walter Sartori was a retired scientist, and he met 50-year-old Willa Blanc in 2008 when she was hired to clean his neighbor's home. The man had just moved to Hebron for its proximity to Northern Kentucky International Airport since he enjoyed traveling to scientific conventions. At the time, he was encouraged to develop a personal relationship by his doctors, so he began to visit online chat rooms. While chatting in a mental health forum, Sartori met a woman from Virginia named Ann Carty. Eventually, the two were communicating on a daily basis, but suddenly, in the beginning of 2009, he stopped replying. Worried about the man's well-being, Ann asked the Boone County Sheriff's Department to conduct a wellness check. When a deputy followed up on this request, he saw that nobody was home. But several days later, the deputy returned and let himself in through an unlocked door. He found medications in the home for schizophrenia, at which point they got even more concerned for Sartori's safety. Anne reported a strange encounter that the man had with Willa Blanc shortly before he went missing. Apparently, after Sartori arrived home in New York, he saw that his driveway had been cleared of snow. A short time later, he was approached by Blanc and told that her son, Louis Wilkinson, had shoveled it. He also asked for a job to clean his house and tried to convince him for nearly 2 hours before leaving. Sartori confided in Anne about the interaction and said he thought Blanc might have been casing his house to rob him. Investigators followed the lead and confronted Blanc in Union, Kentucky, where she lived. She suspiciously reported seeing a man a few days before at a grocery store and was sure he was fine. She even said Sartori told her he was going to be traveling and asked her to watch his house. Authorities started looking into Sartori's finances and were surprised how much the man was worth. They also found a $10,000 wire transfer, then another $200,000 that had been deposited into Blanc's checking account. The woman would then try to obtain $1.3 million from Sartori's accounts, but before it was completed, they were frozen by authorities. When they brought her in for questioning, she was defiant and asked for a lawyer. But when they interviewed her son Louis, he cracked immediately and accused his mother of manipulation and abuse. He said that he came home one day in February to find Sartori duct taped and gagged in their basement. He was too afraid to go to the police and let it continue. Wilkinson claimed that every time Blanc fed Sartori, he would throw up, indicating that his food was poisoned by the woman. It's not known when Sartori died, but when he did, Blanc and Wilkinson traveled to a friend's farm and burned the body. Police searched the farm and found, quote, charred human remains and a pair of metal rimmed glasses. DNA testing was performed, and it was a positive match for Sartori. Willa Blanc eventually pled guilty to all charges and was sentenced to life in prison in January of 2012. Her son Louis pled guilty to abuse of a corpse, exploitation of an adult, and kidnapping. He was sentenced to 30 years behind bars. Do you believe in lizard people? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. Number 4, cancer scientist murder. In August 2020, a cancer research scientist and mother of 2 was murdered and dumped in a creek while out on a run in Texas. In Plano, the body of 43-year-old scientist Sarmitha Sen was found near a creek less than 2 hours after she left her home for a run along the Chisholm Trail. Immediately, police named 29-year-old Bakari Moncrief as a person of interest in the case. Bakari had been the suspect in a burglary at a residence near where Sen's body was found. He was from out of state and had been staying with relatives at the time of the incident. According to police reports, a home had been broken into around the same time the murder had happened. Due to the, quote, close proximities and very close time frames of the crimes, authorities suspected Moncrief. After an autopsy was performed, it was determined that she died from blunt force injuries. Sen had studied at UT Dallas and the University of Birmingham, Alabama. She was involved in cancer research for most of her career. She had a passion for care and supported research throughout her entire life. She had a husband, Adradam Roy, and 2 sons. It was unclear why anyone would want to harm such an innocent soul. 2 weeks after the murder, Bakari Moncrief was arrested and charged. A motive for the killing remains unknown, and without further details being available regarding the case, it's not known what Bakari's sentencing was. Number 3, bloodthirsty crocodile. In a wild, bloodthirsty attack, it is believed that a 17-foot-long crocodile ate a scientist from Indonesia in 2019. 44-year-old DZ Tuwo was feeding Mary, the crocodile, meat at CV Yoshiki Laboratory when the creature suddenly jumped out of its enclosure and dragged the woman into the water. The tragedy was discovered by shocked workers when they found a, quote, floating object in the pool. Tuwo's body had been mutilated and her entire left arm was completely ripped off. The rest of the woman was not initially found, but after medics carried out tests on Mary, they confirmed that the creature had ingested Tuwo. The woman had been employed by Yoshiki and was the, quote, head of the lab. Other employees weren't surprised the crocodile acted out since it had previously killed another croc sharing the same enclosure. Apparently the animal was troubled and was always a picky eater, like preferring fresh food since it went after Tuwo. Police were confused why the crocodile was kept so close to the lab in the first place, but they couldn't find the croc's owner to question him. But not long after the incident, the reptile was captured and taken to a wildlife rescue in the Bittung district. Tamahan Police Chief Roswin Sirait came out with a statement saying police were searching for the owner to find out if he had a legal permit for the animal, and said the man would be detained if he didn't. It's unclear if Mary's owner was ever found and whether or not charges were brought against him regarding the death of DZ Tuwo. Number 2, off the grid. In 2018, a scientist was camping with his 2 young daughters at the Malibu Creek State Park when he was mysteriously shot in the head in Southern California. Tristan Baudet, 35 years old, was admired by family and friends. He was a scientist who loved to cook and was happiest when out enjoying nature. Sadly, the man was killed doing what he enjoyed most. Initially, there were no arrests made. Police didn't have any leads, and the shooting seemed completely random since there were no clear suspects. Thankfully, nobody else was injured during the shooting, and Tristan's 2 young daughters were sent to their mother unharmed. It wouldn't be until 2 years after the crime that the murderer, 45-year-old Anthony Rauda, was arrested. It's unclear what the man's motive was, but he also had a slew of other charges, including 2 felony counts of battery, 5 counts of second-degree commercial burglary, and a string of weapons-related charges. Rauda apparently had been living off the grid in the woods and would carry out burglaries whenever he needed something. It's possible that he tried to steal from Tristan while he was camping, which ended in the gunshot. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department claimed evidence had been collected incriminating Rauda as being responsible for the murder of Tristan Beaudet. Anthony Rauda is currently awaiting trial relating to the murder charge. Number 1. Magnetron. A Brazilian YouTuber trying to resurrect his imaginary friend by giving a microwave artificial intelligence claimed the kitchen appliance tried to kill him in April 2022. Lucas Rosado, a scientist and engineer, explained that as a child his imaginary friend was his family's microwave, which he lovingly named Magnetron. He imagined the appliance as an English World War I veteran, and when attempted to bring his pal back to life, he fed a 100-page book that detailed every moment of Magnetron's life to the microwave. The machine was also given voice-controlled AI, which proved to be a huge mistake. Apparently, as the AI came alive, he believed the microwave was suffering from PTSD thanks to the World War I memories Rosado had given it. The appliance started threatening his creator and even asked the man to, quote, enter the microwave. Rosado pretended to walk into the machine and then told Magnetron he was inside. Immediately after, the microwave turned itself on, trying to kill the man. When Rosado asked Magnetron why he would do that, he replied saying, quote, because I wanted to hurt you the same way you hurt me. The appliance believed that because the two of them hadn't talked in over 20 years, that Rosado had abandoned him. Needless to say, the experiment was very creepy, and it goes to show the possible dangers AI could impose in the future. Which of these stories did you find most interesting? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Bad Badger.